time to start working on the chassis. Before I start attaching everything to the chassis, I do need to put together the slipper clutch. The first step would be getting the spur gear and attaching the slipper clutch pad to it. And that is just held together using 3 screws. Now that that's all together, I can go ahead and push the bearing in the middle and move on to the slipper clutch bar. Now there's 2 holes in there. What I'm going to do is put this small little bar through the bottom one. Then we're going to go to the slipper clutch base, put that on. Then we're going to get the slipper clutch pad, line that up with the grooves, make sure it lies flat. Then we're going to put on the spur gear, followed by this cheap little freaking bushing. And then we have the collapsible spring, and finally the nut. And we're going to collapse it all the way down and loosen it up half a turn. Now that that's taken care of, we have this little end piece which is going to hook into the center drive line, and that's held in with a grub screw. And now we can start attaching things to the chassis. So the first thing I'm going to do is attach it to the front assembly, and it's held onto it using 4 screws. 2 right here and 2 right here. And now it's time to go ahead and move on to the transmission brace. This gets a screw, a flat-headed screw, put in right there. I gotta screw that all the way down and put a bearing right there. With that taken care of, I'm gonna put the center drive line into the middle of the chassis, flip it upside down, slide this end into the front assembly, get the slipper clutch, slide it through that bearing and into the other side of the center drive line, and now you'll see that there are 2 flat sides to this side of the slipper clutch. I'm going to have to install it into that hole just right. And I'm going to make sure that this lip goes straight underneath that lip. So, here we go. Now that it's been pushed together, there's 4 screws that hold it together. 2 on top and 2 on bottom. Next up, I'm going to get the top of the battery strap down, and I'm going to slide it into place right there and screw this screw down. Next, I'm going to install the cover for the center drive line that goes right down the middle, and then there's a long screw that goes through the cover, which also holds down the other side of the battery tie, and then there's a small screw that goes in over here. And now I'm going to install this part of the battery tie down into the hole right here. And now I can attach the battery strap down by using a little 90-degree clip. Next, I need to go ahead and install the servo, and for now it's only going to be held in with 3 screws, 2 up top and 1 on the bottom. And now it's time to install the ESC. 1 screw is going to go in right there and the other one into that hole. Next up, I'm going to attach the motor mount plate to the actual motor using 2 screws. Next up, I can finally attach the pinion gear, which is going to go to the tip of the shaft. And now I can finally install the motor into the Stampede. I have to make sure that this space goes perfectly on top of that flat-headed screw. Then I'm just going to slide it down and into place. There's a screw that goes through here and into the top of the transmission brace. And then I have to tighten it all the way down once I get the proper spacing in between the pinion gear and the spur gear. With that screw all the way down, I can finally put the transmission cover on, and it's held on with just a single screw up top. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and install this wire brace that goes into that hole. Next up, I have the bottom of the waterproof receiver box with the receiver already in it, and it attaches to the chassis using those 2 holes. Here I have the waterproof seal for the waterproof receiver box. I'm going to feed the antenna through it. I'm going to lay it into that groove just like that. Next, I have the top of the waterproof receiver box. I'm going to feed the antenna right through the hole. Then I'm going to feed the servo through that hole, plug it into channel 1, and I'm going to feed the ESC through that hole and plug it into channel 2. And now I'm going to go ahead and push the top all the way down and seal it by putting a screw in on each side. And now I'm going to go ahead and tuck all these wires into the receiver box and seal it with the top. Now that that's taken care of, I'm going to get the antenna and feed it into the antenna tube, just like that. And you'll see there is a small little groove that it fits into right there. And on the side of that groove there is a small little grub screw that holds it down. Just like that. So I went ahead and I plugged in a battery, I turned on the receiver, and now I'm going to turn on the ESC. Now that is going to straighten out the servo, that way I can go ahead and attach it. And it's only held in with a single screw. And I am pretty much done, so let's go and test the steering. Works fine. Let's see if it drives. Perfect. So let's go ahead and attach the wheels. And every one of the tires is exactly the same, so I'm just going to go ahead and slide it on to the hex hub and put on the 4mm nut. Now I just got to do that 3 more times. And this Stampede is done with. Like I said in the very beginning, I did buy this as a roller, so it doesn't have a body yet, but I have plenty of upgrades planned for it in the near future. If you want to go ahead and see its first run video, click here. Other than that, this build is done. On a side note, this ESC and motor is from my Rustler Demon, so it's just a temporary thing until it gets its own system. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the build videos. I know I had a blast building it. And that is now my Stampede 4x4 named Reaper.